worked for 40 years, you showed up on time, you gave Mondays when you were tired, you gave Fridays when everyone else had already checked out. You gave your best years to a company that called you family at every holiday party, and then, on the day you retired, handed you a plaque and a handshake. And that was it. You did everything right. And somehow, you're still not safe. Not because you were reckless. Not because you bought things you couldn't afford. Not because you made any dramatic mistake anyone could point to and say, "There, that's where it went wrong." The money is leaving quietly, month after month, in ways so small, so structural, so deliberately embedded in the systems you trust, that most people never see it coming until they can't course correct anymore. This is not a story about bad luck. This is a story about the invisible machinery designed to extract your wealth, slowly, after you no longer have the income to replace it. Let's start at the beginning. Day 1. Retirement. The number in your account feels enormous. The median American household arriving at retirement age has somewhere around $200,000 in total savings, though the average, skewed upward by the wealthy few, gets quoted at closer to $609,000. But let's say you're somewhere in between. Let's say you saved well. You were disciplined. You have $350,000 in a 401k and a pension that pays roughly $400 a month. You add your Social Security and you're looking at somewhere around $2,800 a month in guaranteed income. That number feels stable. That number feels like a finish line. It isn't. On day 1, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know that the purchasing power of $2,800 today will not be $2,800 in 5 years. You don't know that 3 separate systems, all entirely legal, all entirely invisible at first glance, are already drawing from your account. You sign up for Medicare. You pick a plan, you make a choice that feels like a formality. And that choice right there sets everything else in motion. We'll come back to the Medicare decision, because that one matters more than almost anyone tells you. Year 1. Your Social Security check arrives with $400, minus $185 automatically deducted for Medicare Part B every single month. Before the check lands, before you touch it, $185 is already gone. That's the 2025 premium, and it went up from $174 the year before. And the year before that, it went up again. The COLA, the cost of living adjustment that's supposed to protect your benefits from inflation, came in at 2.5% for 2025. On paper, that sounds like protection. But Medicare Part B premiums, prescription drug costs, and out-of-pocket healthcare expenses consistently rise faster than the COLA. In many years, the premium increase absorbs the entire COLA raise before any of it reaches your pocket. The raise was an illusion. You don't panic. The math still works. You make adjustments that feel reasonable. You start cooking more. You drive a little less. These feel like choices. They're not really choices yet, but they start to feel that way. And somewhere in the first year, your HOA sends a notice. The Homeowners Association for your 55 and over community has voted on a special assessment. The roofs need replacing. The insurance premium spiked. The reserve fund was underfunded. Research shows that approximately 74% of community associations in the United States are underfunded. 74%. That is not an exception. That is the norm. The letter is polite. The number is not. $8,500, due in 90 days. And just like that, $8,500 is gone from the account you were not planning to touch this year, year 3. Something shifts. It's not dramatic. Nothing about this story is dramatic. You start doing the math differently. You're spending about the same as you always did. Groceries, utilities, the car insurance. But the cart at the grocery store somehow costs more than it used to. The same cart, the same items. The electricity bill went up. Gas went up. The prescription that used to cost $28 a month now costs $54. Your Medicare Advantage plan sent a letter adjusting your formulary. The medication moved to a higher tier. Let's talk about Medicare Advantage. More than half of all Medicare enrollees are now in Medicare Advantage plans. These plans are marketed aggressively to retirees because they often appear to offer more benefits at lower premiums than traditional Medicare. And for some people, in some years, they deliver on that promise. But there is something in the fine print that the television commercials never mention. Prior authorization. Before your Medicare Advantage plan will cover certain treatments, surgeries, and procedures, you need to request permission from the insurance company first. And in 2024, Medicare Advantage insurers processed nearly 53 million prior authorization requests. Of those, 4.1 million were fully or partially denied. When denials for skilled nursing facilities were appealed, 95% were overturned. 95%. Meaning the treatment was medically necessary all along. The denial was wrong, but the appeal takes weeks, sometimes months. And while you're waiting, you're paying out of pocket or you're skipping care entirely. You never thought about any of this when you signed up. The representative at the enrollment fair was friendly. The brochure was glossy. The form was just a form. Year 5. Your daughter calls. She's not in crisis. Not technically, she's just behind. The credit card debt accumulated faster than she expected. Rent in her city is $1,800 a month on a salary that wasn't built for it. She's not asking you to solve it. She's just mentioning it. She's just talking. And you hear it differently than she means it, because you're her parent. Research from Bankrate and Ameriprise shows that up to 75% of parents with adult children provide some form of financial support. The average contributing parent sends roughly $7,000 a year. Some survey data puts monthly contributions at close to $1,500. And about 37% of those parents identify retirement savings as the direct sacrifice. Not vacations, not luxuries. Retirement savings. You don't think of it as a sacrifice. You think of it as love. And it is love. That part is completely true. But it's also $4,000 that left your account in 2 separate transfers that you told yourself were one-time situations. The first time always is. Year 7. You've been in the house for 22 years. The neighborhood has changed. The HOA fees have gone up twice. The second special assessment arrived 18 months ago, $12,000. A sewer line repair. You paid it. What else could you do? The house is worth more than you paid for it. That feels good on paper, but the house is also the place you live. It is not liquid. You can't pay a doctor's bill with equity. You can't use appreciation to cover the gap between your income and your expenses. And the gap is widening. This is the part nobody explains clearly. Inflation doesn't just raise prices, it compounds. 3% inflation doesn't mean things cost 3% more. Over 10 years, it means your dollar buys roughly 26% less. The $2,800 a month that felt stable in year 1 buys what $2,074 bought in year 1. The number on the check hasn't changed. The world it operates in has. Your 401k is still there. You've been withdrawing carefully, 4% annually, the way every financial planner says to, but the markets moved. The balance dropped in year 4, and then recovered, and then dropped again. And each time you withdrew at the bottom, you sold shares at a loss that never fully recovered because those shares are gone. The sequence of returns isn't a theoretical risk. It's a quiet tax on every retiree who needed their money during a bad year. Year 10. The check engine light came on, not a metaphor, the actual car. The repair is $1,900. You fix it because you need the car. Because public transportation in most American suburbs is not designed for older residents, and everyone seems to accept this as simply the way things are. Your friend from the old job tells you she's thinking about getting a reverse mortgage. You nod. You don't say much. But you go home and you start running different numbers, quieter numbers. You're looking at the account balances in a way that feels different from how you used to look at them. They're still there, but they're lower than you expected. And you're not sure exactly when that happened. You were careful. You checked the statements. You didn't take extravagant trips. You didn't gamble. You just Outlived. In a country where the structural cost of living for a retired person quietly, methodically outpaces the structural income available to that same person. And now the question you're asking yourself isn't what you want to do next. It's what happens if you live another 20 years. Because the average American who reaches 65 lives another 20 years. That's not a comforting statistic when the money is moving in the wrong direction. Year 12. The Medicare Advantage plan denied something more serious this time. A recommendation from your cardiologist, a procedure he's been saying you need. The prior authorization was submitted. 3 weeks passed. Then a letter arrived. Denial. The reason cited a clinical coverage policy buried in a document you've never seen. Your cardiologist's office tells you this happens constantly, that they spend significant hours every week just fighting insurance denials on behalf of patients who shouldn't have to fight. You appeal. You win the appeal 8 weeks later. 8 weeks in which you were not receiving the treatment your doctor said you needed, because a company with a profit motive decided the initial answer was no. This is legal. This is how the system is structured. And you don't have the energy to be angry about it the way you once might have. You're tired. That's not weakness. That's the accumulation of 12 years of quiet friction, of fees and denials and adjustments and transfers, of paying for things you didn't plan for, of receiving slightly less than you were promised, over and over, in amounts too small to feel like emergencies, but large enough, compounded across a decade, to change the shape of your life. Year 15. The number in the account is less than half of what it was on day 1. You've been careful. You haven't been reckless. You just lived for 15 years in a country where healthcare costs for retirees average more than $7,000 per person per year out of pocket, where HOA fees in 55-plus communities average over $400 a month before any assessments, where an adult child needing help just this once becomes a pattern that costs on average $7,000 annually to families who can least afford to absorb it, where Medicare Advantage plans denied millions of claims that were later overturned on appeal, but the delays and the paperwork and the stress belonged entirely to the patient. You did everything you were told to do. 40 years of work, 40 years of loyalty, 40 years of showing up. And the systems that were supposed to protect what you built were quietly, efficiently for 15 years extracting it. Not through a single catastrophic event. Not through fraud or negligence. Through the ordinary operation of the machinery you trusted. Through the ordinary functioning of a structure that was never designed at its foundation to prioritize you. Year 15. A Thursday afternoon. You're sitting at the kitchen table with a piece of paper and a pen. You're doing the math the way you used to do the math before retirement, when the numbers still moved in your favor. The 401,000 has $108,000 left. The pension and Social Security total $2,800 a month. The Medicare premium will go up again in January. The HOA board is meeting next week. Your son called last night, and you recognized the sound in his voice before he said anything. You pick up the pen. You start writing numbers in a column, and somewhere between one column and the next. If this conversation reached something real for you, if it confirmed something you've been feeling but couldn't name, then stay close to this channel. There are more of these conversations coming, and every single one is built on facts, not fear. Subscribe if you haven't. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss what's next. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who's still in year 1 thinking they figured it out, send it to them. Not because there's an easy answer, because knowing what you're actually facing is the only place any real answer can start.